Good evening, college basketball fans, and I am Brad Kreppel, host of the College Pride Press podcast. We are happy to be back here. It's been a while since our last podcast, but we are back with a new system, and we got a new writer with us as well as two vets. So we've got Noah and Ryan, and then Sean joining us. So let's just go through our normal kind of introductions, where you're from, where you go to school, and your major. So we'll start off with Sean.
All right, my name's Sean Bock. I'm a senior at Bennett Academy in Lisle, Illinois, and I'm hoping to study business or journalism.
All right, Ryan, what's going on with you?
Hey guys, happy to be back for year two. My name is Ryan Berry. I'm a junior at Purdue University studying mass communications. I hope to become a sports journalist after I graduate.
All right, last but not least, Noah.
Hi, my name is Noah Croak. I write for IU, and my major is sports management.
All right, and we've got a great panel here today. I'm very excited to be back. We had some issues, as I tweeted about, with our last system, the Blab system we used. It went just like out of business, and they're no longer a website. So we're happy to be using Google Hangout thanks to some very generous donations that we can use this system now. So we will mention those later in the podcast, but we're going to kind of do some quick hit questions here tonight and just kind of overview everything that's going on in the country, college basketball wise. And so, of course, we're going to start off with number one team in our top 25 poll, and that's Duke. And so kind of question is, how will Duke handle having 4 top 20 freshmen with the return of Grayson Allen and Emil Jefferson? So we'll have Noah start this one off. What are your thoughts on Duke and all those guys coming in?
I love Duke's team this year, obviously, like the same in our poll. And I picture them as a favorite, without a doubt. They always seem to handle their freshmen pretty well from what I've seen. Besides the Chase Jeter kid last year, I don't know what happened with that. I'm eager to see if he's going to play this year because I really liked his game. I watched him in the McDonald's All-American game, and I loved watching him play. I just didn't really see why he didn't get to play because they never go too deep into their bench. So that's one of the things that I'm very eager for, of how the freshmen, the playing time, and how that's going to work for them.
All right, Ryan, what do you have to say about Duke here?
Well, Duke is obviously, I'd say, the most complete roster in the nation. Grayson Allen, I still think, is the top dog on that team. Although, they have a loaded freshman class, these 4 top 20 freshmen. But I look at these freshmen as complementary pieces to Grayson Allen. I think Grayson will really enjoy having such a loaded front court with Giles and Tatum and Bolden. The bottom line with Duke is, just like any team, cranking out this kind of freshman class, it's going to take a little bit of time to gel. But there is a reason that Coach Mike Krzyzewski is the winningest coach in college basketball history. Like I said, this is a loaded roster, and I think it's one of the most balanced rosters in college basketball. I expect them to bring home Coach K's 6th national championship in the end.
Okay, Ryan, what are your thoughts on Duke? Here's Sean.
Yeah, so I'm going to go off what Ryan said. I think Grayson Allen is going to be an absolute stud this year. He's got all the players around him. He's got Harry Giles, Frank Jackson, Jason Tatum, Marquise Bolden. Don't forget about Emil Jefferson, my bad. Matt Jones and Chase Jeter. And also Luke Kennard, who's a great shooter. I think this is going to be Grayson's best year yet. He's just got everyone around him, and I don't see how they'll not win a national championship.
Yeah, I'm very happy that Sean brought up my boy Luke Kennard. As many of you guys know from the podcast, I am a big Luke Kennard guy, and I think his role is going to be seriously diminished from last year. But I think the thing that is really going to make Duke special in this kind of transition from the guys that are returning are going to be moving into lesser roles with these freshmen coming in. But the Grayson Allen and Luke Kennard, those guys are both knockdown shooters. And so I think those guys are going to be able to sit around the perimeter a little bit more and kind of let the offense play out and be able to take open jump shots and make them and convert rather than kind of creating their own shot, which is what they've been doing throughout their college careers thus far. So I think Duke is they're going to be a really good team. They're going to kind of have to fit those pieces into the puzzle. But Coach K, as everyone said, he's one of the best. So he's going to have to kind of find a way. And I know last year they did have some disappointing freshmen with Jeter and with their point guard, whose name's escaping me. But those two guys didn't really kind of fit in the mesh. But I'm hoping that these freshmen kind of fit in the mold and they get their playing time and kind of show off their skills because Duke being a powerhouse, that as much as everyone would hate that, that's going to help college basketball with the level of competition. Everyone's going to be trying to take them down, which makes for great games and it's going to be a great season. So I'm looking forward to see what's going on with Duke. Next one, of course, I mean, we're hitting up the Blue Bloods here. Kentucky, how will Coach Cal and Kentucky fare in their rebuilding year? And I know Sean kind of put that they're in a rebuilding year, but I think last year was kind of the rebuilding year, and although they lose Tyler Lewis, there's no really rebuilding year in Kentucky with all those big guys they've got coming in. So I'm very intrigued to see what you guys have to say about their front court and how they're going to kind of mesh together with Coach Cal. So we'll let Sean kind of take the lead on this one, talking about what's going on in Lexington and those new guys coming in.
So I think this is going to be one of Coach Cal's teams that's going to struggle at first, like especially in the preseason tournaments and stuff. But then they'll just breeze through the SEC. There's no way that they'll have any trouble going through that. And then they'll become a good contender in the tourney for sure. Malik Monk's going to be an absolute stud. And him and Darren Fox are going to have like one of the best backcourts in college basketball, I think. So, yeah. And keynote is that De'Aaron Fox is getting a lot of comparisons to John Wall. So if that doesn't scare you enough, then I don't know what will.
Can you guys hear me now? Yeah. Add in Isaiah Briscoe to that conversation about the guards, and I think that's going to be truly special. The thing that kind of scares me about what you're saying with De'Aaron Fox is that if he's John Wall, I've seen him play games where he's drained 3 after 3, and John Wall never made threes in high school or college, so that's going to be scary for defenders. But I think their guards are going to be good. I think they're going to kind of have to shuffle around their front court because they've got just so many guys coming in, and even the guys coming back with Willis and Humphreys. They've got some talent. They're going to have to mesh together and kind of find everyone's strengths and weaknesses. So, I'll toss it back to Ryan, see what he has to say.
Yeah, Brett, it's funny that you can even tell yourself maybe that Kentucky is having a rebuilding year when Coach Calipari is still pulling in these monster recruiting classes every year. You mentioned their front court, and I think this will take quite a bit of time to gel. I know they have Bam, Wenyan Gabriel, and I think Isaiah Humphreys is very underrated though, and I think he'll really help out the younger freshmen as they transition from preseason tournaments, non-conference play into conference play. Like with every Kentucky team, I think this is a team that will gel a lot later rather than sooner, probably a lot sooner than Coach Calipari would like. But this is a team I would not want to play come March, as I say about Kentucky every year.
All right, Noah, what are your thoughts on Kentucky and kind of fitting those new guys in there?
I kind of totally agree with Ryan with saying that they're going to struggle at first, but I mean, I do not want to see this team in March. And compared to last year's team, it seems like these pieces fit better together. Like, I love De'Aaron Fox at the point. I love Wenyan Gabriel. I mean, his highlight videos are almost unreal. So if I see them in March, I'd definitely be worried. And an underrated piece that I think is going to be a solid role player for him is Michael Mulder. He's actually went to college about 30 minutes from me in Vincent University, and he was a stud. He didn't get to see a lot of time because Jamal Murray was there last year, but I think he will be a solid 7th or 6th man in that rotation who could really be a solid piece to come March.
I think it's funny you have to say that about Mulder because last year I thought, wow, this kid could really play a big role with because Briscoe is never really that big of a shooter, but and they really did not have that much shooting outside of Murray and Ulis, and yet Mulder kind of rode the bench the whole way, and he was known as kind of a big guard with some shooting. So I think it's interesting you say that. I hope that he gets some time this year, and it's always tough with Kentucky, and you never know who's going to become kind of Cal's dandy guys and the guys that he kind of carries along and propels up. Next up, we're going to talk about the national champs, and I know Sean wrote about talking about Josh Hart, but I want to talk about Jalen Brunson because we've talked about freshmen coming in and Omari Spellman's not going to be playing this year for Villanova, so I think it even puts more pressure on a returning guy, which is Jalen Brunson. He's going to have to step in for Ryan Arcidiacono, and he's going to have to run that prolific offense and head up that defense. And Jay Wright's going to put a lot of pressure on him to score and distribute, and he's not going to be able to throw it down low to Spellman. Ochefu's graduated. So I want to talk about what you guys think about Jalen Brunson going into this year and whether he can kind of take on the load of Villanova, and if they won the national championship, so if they're going to reach their goals, he's going to have to be spectacular in my mind. So we'll go with Noah on this one and kind of hear what you have to say.
I love Jalen Brunson. I think he's going to lead this team well, but saying that they're going to return to the national championship is a stretch a little bit for me, just because I thought they overachieved a little bit last year. I mean, they were a great team, but losing Arcidiacono and then Spellman is going to be really tough. But I think he's going to be their best player, along with Josh Hart. But other than that, I think they're going to struggle. I can see an Elite Eight for sure, but winning another national championship is a stretch for me.
All right, Ryan, what are your thoughts on Nova and Jalen Brunson this year?
Like you said, Brad, with Villanova this year, the obvious elephant in the room is the eligibility concerns of Omari Spellman and having been deemed ineligible this season. That's a major loss, as is, like you mentioned, the loss of Ryan Arcidiacono to graduation. When I was preparing for this podcast, I actually put a star next to Jalen Brunson's name because he is really going to be the driving force for this team. So many people talk about Hart and Jenkins, but Brunson, I think, will carry this team as to heights that they want to go. I expect natural regression. Obviously, the only way to match their last season is to win another national championship. Like I said, I expect them to regress a little bit, not having the same leadership as last year, but I would not dismiss them because of Jalen Brunson.
All right, Sean, what do you have to say here?
Oh, yeah, I agree with you guys 100%. I love Jalen Brunson. I've been watching him since he's a sophomore at Stevenson, and the dude's just a winner. He makes everyone around him better. Now I don't see why they can't make a deep tournament run. I mean, they'll struggle a little bit without a big man. I saw something yesterday. They don't have a guy like over 6'8" or something like that. I think, yeah, something like that. So they'll definitely struggle down low, but I think Brunson will carry a lot of the load and take Villanova where Jay Wright wants him to.
All right, I'm going to kind of go out on a line here. I had to eat my words last year in the tournament preview podcast. I talked down Villanova and said first weekend they're going to be out, and they ended up winning it, so I kind of had to eat my words. But first podcast of the new season, I'm going right back, sticking with my guns. They're going to be out by the first week of the tournament, and October 9th, you can mark it down right here. And I do think Jalen Brunson's going to have a big year, though. I think he's going to put up some big numbers, but I still think Villanova's going to be out the first weekend. And they're probably going to be overrated again because they play in the Big East. So you kind of have that. Next, I kind of want to go a little off script here. And I know this wasn't on the agenda, but talk a little bit about the two big ineligible players in the NCAA that have come out the past few weeks. Both Omari Spellman, we mentioned, from Villanova, and Kostas Antetokounmpo, the younger brother of the Greek Freak over at Dayton. I know Alex Handorf is somewhere probably yelling at someone about this, but he's ineligible too. So what are you guys thinking about these guys being ineligible for academic reasons regarding their high school careers? And I heard both of them were like along the lines of like freshman and sophomore year grades and eligibility there. So what? Anyone have anything to say about those guys being ineligible? Just take the floor.
I have something to say about Spellman. I really don't think he was ready for the Division I level at that high of a level. I mean, I watched his highlight. I mean, you can't really say much from a highlight mixtape because it only shows like the good. But some of the competition he played against was just not like exciting to me. I really think he needs another year to develop and like maybe work on his body a little bit to become a dominant postman in Division One.
All right, so you think that maybe this is a blessing in disguise for him?
Yeah, kind of.
Well, I
Yeah.
thought it was interesting that Spellman rather than Costas. I thought Spellman was interesting because he said, "I'm staying in Villanova and I'm gonna sit this year out and then I'm gonna play next year," because he's a 5-star All-American. He certainly has some options in terms of, you know, he could have gone to Europe somewhere and played for a year, then gone right into the draft, or even go to like a grad, kind of take a post-grad year and just kind of play. But he decided to stick at Villanova, so I think that it may be a blessing in disguise, just like Sean said. I don't know if Ryan or Noah have anything they'd like to add.
I can add something about eligibility concerns in general. Especially with these top players, it seems like there are a couple of issues with eligibility nowadays. We see kids coming over from overseas, mostly Europe, and we see these kids that maybe were in programs that funneled into national teams, and those are really hindering their eligibility for college basketball in the United States. Another thing that I think is a big problem is the emergence of these, prep schools. We see guys like I think was it Paul Scruggs that transferred to prep school?
Paul Scruggs to prolific prep to play with Gary Trent.
Right, and I really don't like the direction that this is going with these prep schools. I don't trust them. I don't trust their academic backgrounds, and clearly the NCAA doesn't either, as we see more and more of these cases come up with academic ineligibility.
Yeah, I think part of it's the ridiculous transferring. I mean, Kostas Anagambo, he kind of is a tough situation because he was in Greece and then he came over to Milwaukee and lived with his brother. So that's kind of tough situation for him. But I thought it was funny that he was ineligible, and yet Omar Yurtseven, who had been playing in the professional ranks but didn't take any payments, he was deemed eligible to play at NC State. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But Ryan, great point with the transferring, and Paul Scruggs is the first name that came to my mind. Another name is Billy Preston, and he was kind of deemed as one of those guys that could be ineligible, and then he transferred to a really good basketball powerhouse school, so he can kind of get his academics in order, according to multiple reports. So, and a bunch of teams jump back in on his recruitment. So I think that's kind of the teams are starting to show that they're not going to offer scholarships and take risks on guys that could be potential trouble with academics. The one thing I did want to say, kind of personnel-wise for Dayton, is that obviously Big Steve is a tough loss, both on the court and off the court. That's really tough for them. But they kind of had Costas to come in, and he's a big guy that can kind of guard bigs, and he's not going to be there this year. I think that's going to really hurt them down low, and they're going to need some help. Maybe it's not going to hurt them as much in the A10, but outside the A10, they could really get burned without some big guys to kind of shoulder the load and get the rebounds and play good D. So now that we kind of finished that mini rant, we'll get back to the agenda. And next team to talk about is Virginia. And the question is, will Virginia finally make it to the Final Four in the Tony Bennett era? They've got they had a couple guys depart, but they've got Kyle Guy, 5-star from Indiana, who I've seen play a couple times. He's coming in as a freshman. So do you guys think Virginia's going to make the Final Four this year? Start off with Noah.
No, I do not. I love Kyle Guy. I love Tony Bennett. I love their defensive philosophies with guarding the pack line. But I do not see them making a Final Four. Just for lack of talent, I guess I would say. But it's not that they're not as talented. It's using their talent. But man, I love Virginia. I just don't see them making a Final Four.
Okay, fair enough. Ryan, do you think they're gonna make the Final Four?
Brad, I think they missed their best shot in the Tony Bennett era last year. That when they lost in the Elite Eight to Syracuse. Virginia is good. Don't get me wrong, and I'm in the same boat. I love Kyle Guy. I think it's a disappointment for all the Indiana colleges that they let him get out of state and go to Virginia. The thing that scares me about Virginia is their youth. I see 5 freshmen and 3 sophomores on their roster, and I just don't think that'll get it done in the end in March. Virginia is still top 25. Look, they're good, but I think Virginia making the Final Four is a bit of a stretch.
All right, Sean, what do you have to say before I jump in with my rant?
Yeah, I don't think Virginia will make the Final Four this year, but definitely in years to come, for sure. Like Kyle, like what you guys said, Kyle Guy, Mr. Basketball from Indiana. Let's not forget about point guard Tyler Jerome. He's he's going to be a 4-year player, great shooter, playmaker, and big man Jay Huff, who they're saying is the next Frank Kaminsky, which is a pretty big claim for a guy coming right out of high school. But yeah, I'm excited for this Virginia team. I think they got great potential, great young players, and sky's the limit in a couple years. So,
I mean, I go back and forth on this, and I've been back and forth on this even when you guys were talking, because Austin Nichols is coming in. He's a name that we have to mention. He's going to be an absolute stud, big man. But I think it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be a really competitive year. So I can see them being right in the hunt, Sweet 16, Elite 8. And, it's October 9th, so it's tough to say, the difference between the Sweet 16 and a, Final Four team is nothing right now. So, it's going to be really tough. And I think it's just going to be matchups. I think they're going to have a really good team this year. I don't think they're going to be able to, beat Duke. But I think that they'll be able to put a good fight up, and I think they'll be in the top 25, like Ryan said, most of the year, and they'll be a really good team with Guy and Nichols coming in. Next team we will talk about is championship runner-up from last year, UNC. Now that Marcus Page is gone, who will step up at point guard? And now that Bryce Johnson's gone, who's going to step up in in his role as power forward center? So we'll go backwards here, Sean. What do you have to say about UNC and replacing those 2 big seniors?
well, first things first, I'm still kind of upset about that Sweet 16 loss last year against UNC for Indiana. So, yeah, this is a tough one for me. But I think they returned 3 starters from last year's teams, and Joel Berry, Justin Jackson, Kennedy Meeks. And they're going to insert Theo Pinson in the starting lineup, who I think is going to be the huge X factor for them. He's an athletic guy, slasher, defender. He's the ultimate glue guy. And I also think the freshmen are going to be huge. Brandon Robertson, Seventh Woods, Tony Bradley. And the one that I think is going to be the top freshman for them is definitely Brandon Robertson. He's a very smooth player, can shoot the 3, and which we know North Carolina struggled with, of course. They struggled with the whole year except when they played Indiana, of course. So that'll be big for them.
All right, Ryan, what are your thoughts on UNC?
Well, I think the obvious answer to their point guard issue is going to be Joel Berry. He's a rising junior, and he saw a huge increase in his minutes from his freshman to his sophomore year, going from 13 all the way to 30. Last year, he averaged about 13 a game, 13 points, and then 4 assists per game. And I think these are good numbers to fit in Roy Williams' offense. Kennedy Meeks will provide a lot of size for them, so I think he really can play a lot of inside out with Joel Berry. To answer the question, I think we could see a little bit of Nate Britt at the point guard. But the number one guy, in my opinion, is going to be Joel Berry.
All right, Noah, what are you thinking about UNC here?
Who's gonna play the point guard position for him? You're gonna see Joel Berry. I love Joel Berry, but I don't know if he would fit right into UNC's offense. But he's a tough, strong guard. Registered a 6 foot 195 from what I'm seeing, which is crazy. Like that's a thick point guard. The concerns that I see is the backup point guard. I don't know if Kenny Williams or Seventh Woods. I guess they could play the backup point guard, but I wouldn't trust them. They're more considered as a 2 guard. But I think we're going to see a good, strong year from them because they have 3 starters returning, like you guys have mentioned, which means a lot. Like, experience means a lot. And they have some talented freshmen coming in. I love Justin Jackson. I love that he returned. So I'm expecting a big year from UNC.
Yeah, I think UNC is going to be right there. I don't think they're going to be as good as last year. One stat I'll give you about Joel Berry, kind of stepping in the point guard, was he shot 38% from 3 last year, and I looked that up because I didn't think it would be that high. I think it would kind of be a knock on him, but 38% is pretty good. If you can keep that up while his quantity of shots goes up, I think he could step in and be a pivotal part of that team. Other than that, I mean, they always have just a lot of athletes around, so it's kind of up to Roy Williams and kind of developing those guys and seeing who's developing quicker. So that's kind of my thoughts on UNC. Next, we'll move on to how will second-year coaches fare after exceeding expectations of their first year. So we're talking about Will Wade of VCU, Shaka Smart of Texas, and Steve Prohm of Iowa State. I'm sorry. So we'll go back to Noah on this one and talk about those second-year coaches and any. I mean, we can go off the list if you want any other second-year coaches that are kind of piquing your mind for this year.
I love Shaka Smart at Texas. He got Jared Allen. I think that's a big get. I was actually surprised that Texas has their own basketball channel, which I didn't. It doesn't make it. It'd be like IU having their own football channel, I guess. But I had watched a lot of that. And I was impressed. They do some crazy workouts. Like I had seen a lot of other college workouts, but I love watching their Navy SEAL training. I would love to try to implement that if I ever had a team because it really makes your mind tougher, and that's what they're all about is being mentally tough. So I'm expecting a big year from Texas. I love Shaka Smart. I see Iowa State being how they always are. Never really a true contender, but always being ranked high in the tournament and always having a great record. And then I don't know a lot about VCU and Will Wade. I know whenever Shaka Smart was there, they were run and jump, run and gun team. And I think they should stay on that because that was their identity. That's what I knew them as. That's what everybody around me, close to basketball, knew them as. So if I was them, I would try to stick to that identity.
All right, Ryan, what are your thoughts on second-year coaches? Anyone that sticks out to you?
I'll start with Iowa State. I like Steve Prohm. I like what he's done. After taking over for Coach Hoiberg after his exit to the NBA, he's really kind of taking a page out of Hoiberg's playbook with hitting the transfer market pretty hard. Ultimately, I think Iowa State will take a step back this year. The loss of Niang will be a little bit too much for them to overcome. Then over at VCU, Coach Wade has really hit the ground running. I expect VCU to be in the top 2 again in the Atlantic 10 Conference with Dayton. And VCU really hasn't seen too much of a drop-off. Certainly not as much as I would have expected with the departure of Shaka Smart to Texas. And then speaking of Shaka Smart in Texas, look, Shaka can recruit, and Texas I think will get better and better and better as the years go by with Shaka Smart at Texas. I expect them to be in about the top 3 or 4 in the Big 12 this year. I'm going to expect a pretty big year from the Longhorns.
All right, Sean, what are your thoughts on second-year coaches?
Well, personally, I love Will Wade. He's as Barstool says, there's football guys. I think Will Wade's a basketball guy. He's the ultimate coach. He teaches great morals, teaches focus on a team game, and just gets the most out of his players for sure. I think they'll be a tournament team this year. And Shaka Smart at Texas, like Ryan said, he's got a great ability to recruit. He's got Jared Allen, big man coming in this year, who they say is the next Miles Turner, which is scary. And Steve Prohm, they lose Georges Niang at Iowa State, but Monte Morris, point guard, he averages 14 points and 7 assists per game last year. He's gonna be big for them, and I think they'll surprise some people this year. So,
all right, I'm kind of going the opposite direction. I think Shaka Smart's going to be very impressive on the positive note. Negative note, I think Iowa State's going to take a huge step back. I love Monte Morris. I always have, and if you listen to the podcast, you know that. But part of what makes him so good is his assist to turnover ratio and his ability to score and kind of distribute at the same time. But I just don't think there's enough talent there for him to distribute on a consistent basis. So I think it's just going to be kind of him and him scoring, and the teams are going to be able to lock down on him defensively, and those other guys aren't going to be able to score. We kind of saw him take a few steps back last year, that team without their coach, but I think this year they're just not going to be as talented. They're kind of fall off a tier or two in the Big 12. So we're kind of going in the wrong order, but next we will do the one first-year coach that sticks out to you that's going to have a successful year, and one first-year coach that you don't think is going to be very successful in their first stint. So kind of out of order, I know, but we'll kind of go with Sean first. First-year coach that you like a lot, and first-year coach you don't like.
I think I'm gonna like Jamie Dixon at TCU. I mean, they're coming off a 12-21 season, but they got true frost point guard Jalen Fisher, who I love. He's a great defender, just a solid point guard overall. And they have 4 returning seniors, which will be key for them. And a guy who I think is going to struggle in his first year will be Bryce Drew at Vanderbilt. He's a Valpo guy from Valpo. He helped put Valpo on the map. He's got some returning guys from last year's team at Vanderbilt that underachieved. Big guy Luke Cornett will be very key for them, but I don't think they'll have a great year at Vanderbilt this year.
All right, Ryan, which first-year coach do you like, and which first-year coach do you not like?
Well, I think I'm going to flip-flop that a little bit. I do like Bryce Drew at Vanderbilt. I love what he did at Valparaiso. He's an Indiana guy, and I think those coaches tend to be successful in what they do. I don't think Vanderbilt will be as good this year. They did lose a lot of talent to the NBA, but I'd say within about 2 or 3 years, I expect Vanderbilt to be back in the top 25. And then Kevin Stallings at Pitt. I'm not as high on him as others, even though he is part of the Gene Katie coaching tree. I expect Pittsburgh to struggle a little bit this year. I don't think they have enough of a balanced roster to be successful, especially considering the conference they play in. Ultimately, I think Stallings can be successful at Duke, probably to about the ceiling that Jamie Dixon gave them. But when it comes down to it this year, I expect Stallings to struggle a little bit in Pittsburgh.
All right, Noah, what are your thoughts on first-year coaches here? Who do you like, who do you not like?
I love Jamie Dixon at TCU. I love his recruiting with Jalen Fisher and Desmond Bain. I wish Desmond Bain would have went to Purdue because I loved watching him in high school ball. Kid was an absolute beast, tearing it up. And then I guess Kevin Stallings going to Pitt. I'm not huge on that move on his part because what's the difference really between Vanderbilt and Pitt? I guess the recruiting helps a little bit, but I like Bryce Drew as well. Indiana guy. He was at Valpo. I watched a couple of his college games. I liked how he coached. But I'm really liking what Jamie Dixon's doing at TCU, and I could see them being in the NIT because I know that they are not known as a basketball school, but I could definitely see them making some moves in the NIT.
All right, I'm going way off the map here, way different from you guys. Coach, I like Tubby Smith at Memphis. I love that hire. I'm a big Tubby Smith guy, and they've got some great returning players. I think they're going to kind of surprise people this year. Coach, I don't like the old Memphis coach, Josh Pastner. He's at Georgia Tech now, and he's in the ACC. I think he's just going to get completely pounded. And I never liked him as a coach anyways. I've heard multiple interviews of him, and he just doesn't impress me. I don't think he's going to be very successful there, and I think he's going to be out of a job in a few years. So that's a little bit off the map, but Tubby Smith, watch out. He's going to have a big year this year. All right, next up, we'll kind of flip-flop and go coaches on the hot seat. So just a coach who you think is going to be on the hot seat this year. I don't know if it's on the agenda or not, but I just kind of want to throw it in there, get your guys' thoughts on a coach who's on the hot seat. So I'll start it off, and I'm going to go with John Gross from Illinois. I know he's getting some big-time recruits, but he's got to start making it pay off on the court, and I don't think this is going to be the year for them. As much as Malcolm Hill is a quality player, he's not going to really carry them in a conference like the Big Ten. So I think John Gross is going to be on the hot seat. He's going to have to deliver this year. Sean, who's on the hot seat in your mind?
Steve Alford, UCLA. He's got 2 top recruits coming this year, Lonzo Ball, Naismith National Player of the Year in high school last year, and TJ Leaf. I think if UCLA doesn't make it to the NCAA tournament this year, there's no way he's coming back. So,
all right, Ryan, coach on the hot seat.
Yeah, I'm looking at Coach Richard Pitino at Minnesota. I'm not quite sure how he still has a job, to be honest. But I look at the Minnesota program and I just see a pretty big mess. I know the Pitino name itself carries a lot of weight in college basketball, but like I said, Minnesota is just a mess. They don't have a lot of talent on that roster, and I know they had a little bit of an issue at the end of last season with the suspensions and the video that surfaced. We don't need to get into details, but Richard Pitino, I think probably at this point is a dead man walking. I expect his name to be available in the coaching searches at the end of this year.
I like that a lot. All right, Noah, what are your thoughts here? Coach on the hot seat.
Without a doubt, I agree with all 3 of those. Those are great options. For me, it's John Beilein at Michigan. I feel like he had underachieved in the past 3 or 4 years. His recruiting just doesn't seem to be as hot. I don't see him in with any big names anymore, or his team really getting to the tournament or even going far to like a Sweet 16 in the tournament. So that's the coach for me, who I think could be on the hot seat towards the latter end of the season, whenever his team isn't doing as well as the AD or president would expect.
Okay, all right. I like all of those. John Beilein, the one thing I kind of want to add on what Noah said is they lost Max Bielfeldt and they lost a couple of other guys to grad transfers, including Spike Albright. So that's kind of one thing that's tough, that he's developing these guys and then they're leaving. So that was the one thing I know. Next question, I kind of want to go off of what Sean was saying at UCLA with Steve Alford. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in Westwood with those guys. What are you thinking about UCLA going into this year? Because, they have a lot of guys returning, including Bryce Alford, and they got a lot of big recruits coming in. So that's kind of a mishmash. Alford's going to have to put together, and he's going to have to put together quickly to keep all those Bruin fans happy. So, Sean, you kind of headed up the UCLA argument. What are you thinking out here?
Well, like I said before, they got 2 top recruits coming in, Lonzo Ball and TJ Leaf. I think the key thing for UCLA this year will be Lonzo Ball. If you guys seen his high school games, they score 130 points a game. They don't send an offense, they just run. And it's going to be difficult for him to adjust, but I think he'll do it anyway. And then TJ Leaf, he's going to be huge in the power forward position for UCLA. And I think he'll be the next best power forward since Kevin Love over there. So I think UCLA will not make the tournament this year. I think they'll be an NIT team. And
hot seat, baby. I like it.
Yeah. So I think they'll be an NIT team, and Alford will be on the free agent list for coaches. So.
Wow, very, very interesting. All right, Ryan, what are you thinking about for UCLA this year?
Look, I think Lonzo Ball will be as good as advertised, and same thing with TJ Leaf. Alford is the real deal as well. I like their pieces. However, I don't like the fit of Coach Alford at UCLA. I really never did. You can trace Alford's roots, back to Indiana with Bobby Knight and that kind of style of coaching. I never really liked that hire, to be honest, of Alford at UCLA. I didn't think he was a great fit for what they want to do and for traditionally what that program has been. So I don't think I'll be as bold and say they won't make the tournament, because I think the talent that they have on that roster will probably be enough to get them off the bubble and into the big dance. But I think Alford, his seat is getting warmer by the game, and then at the end of the year, he might not be employed by UCLA.
All right, Noah, what are you thinking about for UCLA?
I love his recruiting, and I think if he gets Chris Wilkes, which seems like a long shot, but then he'll have a job. Other than that, I think they're going to underachieve. I can even agree that they probably won't make the tournament. So if that happens, Steve Alford's going to be looking for a new job.
Wow, you guys are really down on them. I think Ball can put it together for them. I think they're going to be pretty good. I think they'll make the tournament at the very minimum, but I don't know if they're going to be a top 25 team for the whole year. So now I kind of want to do real quick hits. So just 30 seconds apiece. We'll start off with Ryan. We'll just give this one to Ryan, talking about Purdue replacing A.J. Hammonds and talking about, what's going to be the point guard situation with Carson Edwards and Spike Albright. So we'll just give this one to Ryan because he's the Purdue guy.
Yeah, I'm high on Purdue this year, and it seems like a lot of the experts are. The preseason polls I've seen have Purdue. I've seen them as high as 9 and then as low as about 19 to 20, and I think they're probably right in the middle of that, about 10 to 15. And like you said, Brad, the biggest key for them will be replacing A.J. Hammonds. A.J. Hammonds was a very skilled big man and the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year last year, and so replacing him will be really the difference maker for Purdue. Isaac Haas will step into the starting center role, a 7'2" center, so he has a 2-inch height advantage over A.J. Hammonds. Haas is not nearly as skilled, really, but he is improving. His hands have gotten better. His fork has gotten better. And so I think he'll still be one of the top centers in the Big Ten. And then Caleb Swanigan, I think, is headed for a monster year. Word out of West Lafayette is his footwork has really improved, as has his mid-range game. And this is still a man we're talking about that could almost lead the Big Ten in rebounding in his sleep. He averaged 9 a game his freshman year, and I expect that to get even better in his sophomore year. So Purdue still has a front court to be reckoned with. You add Vincent Edwards in there. But like you said, Brad, every year the question is guard play. I expect P.J. Thompson to start the year as a starting point guard, as the veteran. He's a junior in Matt Painter's system. But he has a high ceiling, but kind of a low floor. You know what you're getting with P.J. Thompson. He doesn't get the ball over. However, he can't drive to the basket, really, and that's where it kind of stops with him. Carson Edwards is really a very underrated freshman, I think. He really adds a new dimension to Purdue's offense in terms of the speed, the scoring. His ability to attack the basket really is something Purdue hasn't had in a guard since the days of E'Twaun Moore. Lewis Jackson will throw in there. Like you said, Brad, Spike Albright comes over from Michigan. I expect him to have a minimal role in the offense. He can play on ball and off ball as well. The thing I like about Spike is his ability to break the press. Opponents know that Purdue really hasn't been able to do that the past couple of years. And so with the bottom line of Purdue's guards, they have to be able to do that this year. And I think they will be able to with Carson Edwards' speed and Spike's, veteran savvy. He's been there before. And so I expect the guard play to be better this year. And therefore, I expect Purdue to be better this year. With Purdue's roster built how it is, losing Raphael Davis as well as A.J. Hammonds, the defense will take a step back. How big a step back really remains to be seen. Although Purdue figures to be more efficient on offense this year, so we'll kind of have to see how that trade-off works out in the long run.
All right, I love it. Big things going on in West Lafayette. I can't wait for the Hoosiers to clash with them and talk about them Hoosiers. That's a horrible segue to talk about Indiana, but we got 3 Indiana writers on here, so I'll just let the other 2 guys take over with this one. And for Indiana, I kind of want to focus on 2 things, which is how will Indiana kind of handle Yogi Ferrell's graduation? They've been preparing for this day for a while now. But secondly, they haven't been preparing for Colin Hartman to miss some time. He just injured his knee a few weeks ago, and they're not really sure if he's going to return. If they're not sure if he's going to return, it's not going to look good. If he does return, it's not going to be for a while. So talk about that, kind of those 2 points. I'll let Sean talk about point guard play and Noah take over the Hartman injury. So Sean, what are your thoughts about the guard player?
Yeah, like you said, it's a really interesting point guard situation. We have Josh Newkirk, Pitt transfer, really athletic, Rob Johnson, who's reliable, has struggled turning the ball over sometimes, but's great on the defensive end. And freshman Curtis Jones from Huntington Prep, lights out shooter, can create his own shot, very good ball handler. I think what Tom Crean's going to do is switch up the guards each time up the floor, kind of give the defenses a different look depending on who's hot, who's not. And I think James Blackman might get to bring up the ball a little bit like we saw last year. But if I was Tom Crean, I would just focus on just having Blackman off the ball. Just set screens for him, get his open shot, and let Rob Johnson and Newkirk do the dirty work.
All right. The only thing I have to object with you on is that you're forgetting about my boy Devontae Green. I think he's going to come out of nowhere. I've been high on him for a while, so watch out for him. All right, Noah, what are your thoughts here about this Hartman injury and kind of who's going to step in for him?
I may regret saying this, but for the first time in like 3 years, I'm not worried as an IU fan going into the season.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the first time in 3 years Tim Priller's going to play. I was really going to go nuts. Okay. All right.
No. We had the off-court issues, and then we only had like Hanner Mosquera-Perea and Emmett Holt as bigs at one point. But I'm relaxed as an IU fan right now. I know that Hartman got hurt. He's a big piece. But I still even think his leadership on the bench, if he is for sure out for the rest of the season, I still think it's going to mean a lot. OG is going to have a huge year. I know it. So I'm not worried as an IU fan about Hartman. If he is hurt, hopefully he gets that medical release. I don't see why he wouldn't. And then just to kind of hit on the point guard a little bit, I think James Blackman is going to have a huge year too, finally, as we've all been waiting for. I think he's going to be focused, and we're not going to see that maybe lack of effort that we've seen in the past. So as an IU fan, I'm not worried. I'm just ready for the season. I'm so anxious for the season, and I'm ready to see what we got.
All right, I love it. I really don't have anything else to add. I'll rant about something else, and I'm sure you guys will hear some Indiana rants before the season starts. But we're going to kind of keep in the Big Ten here. One of the most underrated teams in the country, I feel, is Wisconsin this year. They've got like 99.9% of their scoring back. Like they lost like 6 points from last year. So, can Greg Gard in Wisconsin kind of build on that Sweet 16 last year with all those guys returning? So I don't know who wants to take it first. We'll give it to Ryan first.
Look, I will put nothing past Wisconsin. They have shown me that they will be a force to be reckoned with year after year after year. And, enough is being said about their backcourt. Look, we know what Bronson Koenig and Nigel Hayes can do. Those are, two of the best players in the Big Ten, two players that I would expect to appear on a lot of ballots for Big Ten all-first team, all-second team. But the guy that I'm going to look at is their I think, future star big man, Ethan Happ. He looked very good against a lot of the top big men in the Big Ten last year, including Purdue's A.J. Hammons. And I would expect him to just get better and better. I really expected Wisconsin to not have that great of a year, especially after Bo Ryan retired last year. But Greg Gard really, I think, silenced any doubters that may have arisen over last year and then even through the offseason. So I like their backcourt situation, like I said. I like Ethan Happ. And the only question I have about Wisconsin is, can their wings do enough to really put their offense over the top? So Wisconsin is going to be very good. Greg Gard is a very, very good coach. And Final Four for Wisconsin, not out of the question, in my opinion.
I love it. All right, Noah, what are your thoughts on Wisconsin this year?
I love their team. Like you said, all of their scoring is back pretty much. I mean, that's almost unheard of. And then I think there's no way that they don't finish in the top 3 of the Big Ten. Like, if things go terribly wrong, like I still think they're going to be in that top 3, top 4. And then their highest potential, I could see them in the top 5 by the end of the season. I mean, they literally have so much scoring coming back. And then they have that senior leadership with Nigel Hayes. And then they got Bronson Koenig. And then they got Ethan Happ. It's just like, what's the limit for this team? So I expect them to do big things. I like Greg Gard as a coach. So like Ryan said, I could see them in the Final Four without a doubt.
All right, Sean, what do you have to say about Wisconsin with all their scoring back?
Well, you guys hit on all the points with the players and stuff, but I'm going to focus on Greg Gard. It says a lot about a coach when your team is 9-9 and a coach like Bo Ryan resigns and your season's kind of going downhill. You have no momentum. You bring your team back up, fight through a brutal Big Ten schedule, and make it to the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament. That just shows a lot about Greg Gard. And I think Wisconsin is in great hands this year. Could definitely be a Final Four team.
Yeah, you guys hit it right on the nose, both with the players and with the coach. The only thing I have to add is I think our writers are very intelligent, and I trust them. But collectively, we had Wisconsin ranked 11th in our top 25 poll. That's a shame. I think they should be top 10, competing right around that top 5 area. They're going to be really good this year. I like Wisconsin. I think the Badgers are going to have a big year. So we're going to move from one Big Ten power to the next. Talk about Michigan State. They lost Denzel Valentine. They lost a lot of that team, but yet they've got the best recruiting class Tom Izzo has ever brought in. So what are you guys thinking about Michigan State? Is there a freshman that kind of stands out to you for the Spartans? I know that their football team can't beat Indiana, but I guess we can talk about the basketball team. I had to throw that jab in there. So we'll go with Sean right back here on Michigan State.
Well, this is kind of a hot take or unpopular opinion, but I won't really believe the hype in Miles Bridges until I see it. I mean, his highlight mixtapes, he's athletic, he can shoot, but I need to see him against Big Ten competition night in, night out. And one guy I really like is Josh Langford. He's a great shooter, great two-guard, handle the ball. I think he'll be good for them. And also point guard Cassius Winston. He's a playmaker, and I think he'll also be huge for him.
All right, Ryan, what are your thoughts on the Michigan State?
Michigan State, obviously losing Denzel Valentine is going to be a huge hit for them, but they still have some nice pieces. I really like Matt McQuaid, the rising sophomore. I like what he brings to their team, toughness, shooting, all the things that Tom Izzo loves. And then you have Aaron Harris as well, who it seems like he's been around for quite a while. Aaron Harris is a nice piece with them. We mentioned Bridges, and I think most people believe that Bridges will end up being a star for Tom Izzo, whether it's this year or next year. And then he'll be a very good player, I'm sure, in the NBA someday. I'm going to mention freshman Nick Ward because I think he'll be a nice complement to Gavin Schilling in their front court. With Matt Costello leaving the graduation, I expect Schilling to slide into that starting center role. And I expect Nick Ward, their freshman power forward, to compete for minutes at the power forward level and maybe even slide into the starting lineup at some point during the season. So the bottom line with Michigan State is when Tom Izzo's their coach, they will always be there in March. No matter how much they struggle in November and December. Michigan State is a team I would never want to see in my bracket come March. And even with a bitter taste in their mouth after losing to Middle Tennessee in the tournament last year.
I was going to say something. I was going to bring up Middle Tennessee, but you already did it.
All right, go ahead, man. It's all yours.
All right. No, we'll go to Noah, and then I'll say my words here.
I think you guys hit all of it. The only thing that I want to add real quick is if Tom Izzo is going to be at his wits' end with dealing with all these freshmen, because he's lost a lot of his team. And I agree that Miles Bridges is a little bit overrated, I think, but I love Josh Langford. I think he's a one and done. Miles Bridges, I think he's going to be there 2 years because of the lack of dealing with the Big Ten atmosphere. But I love Josh Langford. He's long. He's a two-guard, can play the three, and I think he'll be a one and done.
All right, I am totally with Sean. My house has been very low on Miles Bridges the whole time. Even when Indiana was recruiting him, we weren't that big on him. We watched a lot of Huntington prep games, just haven't seen the hype with him. He's too small to be a small forward, power forward kind of combo. He's got to work on the shot if he wants to last. So not high on them, but I think the rest of the recruiting class is pretty good. I think that down low, Gavin Schilling and Nick Ward, those guys are going to have to step up big this year. and be key players to kind of last in that Big Ten, because there's some really talented big guys with Thomas Bryant, those two big towers at Purdue, Ethan Happ we already talked about. There's some big guys in the Big Ten that are going to be tough to deal with, and you're going to need these guys to step up. So next we're going to kind of go a little bit south of Big Ten country and talk about Louisville. I love Louisville this year. Can they really put aside those distractions and put a season together? Because they've lost those two grad transfers, but they've got a lot of talent coming back. And you guys think they're going to be able to kind of reach their ceiling now that they have all those NCAA violations behind them? And I'll let Noah start this one off.
We actually have a scrimmage against them at the D2 school that I help coach at. So I'm going to be really anxious to hear what you guys got to say about it. But we love their team. We know that they're going to be talented. We know that they're a top 15 team. I really like Quentin Snyder as the point guard for them. Creating, but also he's a very, very reliable shooter. The only thing that I was looking at their stats right before this podcast, and Raymond Spalding, who Tom Crean was very big on, does not get much run, and it's looking like he's not going to get much burn this season either. So that's one thing that I was surprised about, to see maybe either how much burn he's going to get, or if at the season he's another one of those epidemics where he transfers.
All right, Ryan, what are your thoughts here on Louisville?
I believe Louisville can still be, a top 10 to 15 team. The distractions will still be there, I believe, and will probably still be there as long as Pitino is still at Louisville. But they still have some nice pieces, Mitchell, Quentin Snyder, Spalding. I think Dang Adele is going to be kind of a wild card for them. I'm interested to see what he can bring to their front court. But the bottom line, my opinion for Louisville is Pitino is still a great coach, and he will get the most out of his players. Like I said, the distractions will still, I think, be a hindrance to this team in the long run. Although, as much as is possible, I think they will learn to kind of deal with the media scrutiny and, for the most part, avoid it. So, I'm not going to buy or sell yet on Louisville. I'll wait just a little bit before I make up my mind.
All right, Sean, we'll go to you, and then I've got a nice rant prepared for Louisville.
All right, so Louisville loses their top two scorers in Trey Lewis and Damian Lee, but Shina Unaku, who is one of the long list of Rick Pitino's big players that he gets from Africa or wherever he gets them. He's a great rebounder inside, great interior, protects the paint, and as well as anyone in the nation. I think he'll be a big key to Louisville's success this year.
All right, I've got 2 words, and I've been saying these 2 words about Louisville for a while. Anis Mahmoud, the big Egyptian, as we call him. He's going to have a big year. I think he's going to be really big, even though he got injured last year. I think he's going to be big. I think Louisville is going to be really good this year. They're going to be a team to be reckoned with. Donovan Mitchell is going to be good, great athlete. He's going to, if he develops a little bit over the summer, kind of refined his game, he's going to be tremendous. I saw him go off against Duke in Cameron Indoor, so I'm very excited to see him play this year. Next, we're going to kind of talk about the Oregon Ducks. Can Dylan Mitchell live up to the National Play of the Year conversation and help Oregon build on their Elite Eight from last year? I think they're going to be a pretty good team this year. The Pac-12 is kind of going to be a mess, as we talked about UCLA earlier. Their floor and ceiling is so wide, it's going to be crazy. So I'm very excited to see what you guys have to say about Oregon and the Pac-12. So we'll start off with Sean. We'll go right back to him.
Yeah, so Dylan Brooks, as we all know, star player for Oregon. He's coming back from a foot injury. So those are kind of hard to predict, like how long he'll come back or how strong he'll come back. But definitely, as long as Dylan Brooks is on, Oregon will be on. And I don't see them being stopped in the Pac-12, maybe by UCLA or something like that. And another key to them is Tyler Dorsey, 6'4" guard, averaged 13 points per game last year, and he'll be big for Oregon while Brooks is out. And also Jordan Bowe. He's a rim protector. He averages 1 block for every 10 minutes, and he'll be huge for them inside. So, yeah, I think Oregon will have a great year. And if Dylan Brooks can come back healthy, I don't see why they can't be a Elite Eight Final Four team.
All right, we'll go to Ryan. What are your thoughts here about Dylan Brooks in Oregon?
Dylan Brooks is a star player, like we've touched on. He's the real deal, and he's the reason Oregon is being talked about as a top 10 team and a Final Four contender. I think Oregon will end up winning the Pac-12, although we know teams like Arizona are kind of always in there. But I'm going to shift a little bit to a team in Berkeley that I am very high on this year, a little bit higher, I think, than most. Cal is a very good team this year. They have one of the best sophomores in the nation, Ivan Rabb. I expect Rabb to have kind of an even better year this year than he did last year. He averaged 12 a game, 12 points per game with 9 rebounds. I think I'll expect those numbers to maybe jump to 15 points a game, 12 rebounds. Cal is a team with some decent guards. To play with Rabb, they have an incoming freshman in Charlie Moore. I think this team is very underrated, and I know I said I expect Oregon to win the Pac-12, but I expect Cal to be very much in the running.
All right, Noah, what are your thoughts here on Oregon and the Pac-12?
I'm actually very excited for the Pac-12. I think they got some really good players, Ivan Rabb, Dylan Brooks. I love Dylan Brooks. I think he's going to have a crazy statistical year. And then you got Arizona in there too. So it's going to be really competitive at the top, I think. I love Cal's team. I love Ivan Rabb. So I'm just, for a long time and a while, there's going to be some real tough competition at the Pac-12, where I think it's going to come down to the end of the conference season for them.
Okay, all right. I like Oregon. I think the Pac-12 is going to be very interesting. It's like I said, it's going to be very interesting with a lot of teams that have low floors and high ceilings, especially with Arizona bounce back year. So I think that's going to be very interesting to watch. We're going to kind of do last couple questions here. We're going to kind of do very, very quick hits. Just yes or no answers here. We'll just fly through them. Are we going to be seeing a freshman year Melo Trimble or a sophomore year Melo Trimble for the Maryland Terrapins this year? Freshman year, he was fantastic. Sophomore year, his shooting numbers were way down. Assist numbers were down. Everything was down. So we'll just go Sean, then Ryan, then Noah. Freshman year Melo Trimble or sophomore year Melo Trimble?
Well, last year he definitely had the players around him, and Jake Layman, Diamond Stone, all those guys to have a great year, but definitely underachieved. He's got a young group this year, so he's really going to be a leader and step up. But he's got Jalen Brantley and Anthony Cohen, who is backcourt players, and Cohen's a top 100 recruit. And a sleeper in that freshman class is Kevin Huerter, I think his name is. I don't know how to pronounce that. He's a top 100 player as well, lights-out shooter. I think if Melo Trimble is able to lead and carry his team and come up in the clutch, I think we'll see a freshman Melo Trimble.
All right, Ryan, what are you thinking here? Freshman year or sophomore year Melo Trimble?
Okay, I'm going to buy stock in freshman year Melo Trimble. Look, Melo's still a very talented player. Maryland is a lot less talented this year than they were last year, and I think that means more room for Melo to do his thing. I've had the pleasure of watching him play in person a few times, and the talent is definitely there. I think his shooting will improve this year, and look, he's still a great passer, a very underrated passer in my opinion. So I think Melo will return to his old form.
All right, Noah, freshman year or sophomore year Melo Trimble, we're going to see this year.
All right, I'll just hit it real quick. I think his stats are going to be better, but his team is going to be not as good as the past 2 years. So I guess I would say freshman year Melo Trimble.
I'm going to say it's going to be a little bit of mix, but I think he's going to be more freshman year than sophomore year. I think his numbers are going to go up, but I think his shooting percentages are going to stay around the same because he's going to be taking more shots. So that's going to be my thoughts on that. Next, real quick, who's an underrated freshman that you think will make the most noise this year? So we'll go backwards. We'll go with Noah first.
I love De'Aaron Fox at UK. Not a Kentucky fan, but I really respect his game. Also, Jared Allen at Texas, and then of course Markel Fultz at Washington. I really expect a lot out of those three.
All right, Ryan, freshman, you're looking out for him.
Okay, I'm going to stay with my Boilermakers. We've said his name before, but Carson Edwards is going to be the real deal, and here's why. He just adds a new dimension to Purdue's offense, like I said. We haven't had a player with his speed really in a long time. It's been several years at least, and he's going to be the catalyst for Purdue at the guard position. I don't really know yet whether he'll play more on the ball or off the ball, although I assume he'll play more with the ball as non-conference becomes conference play as we move into January and February. But look out for Carson Edwards, man. He's quick and he really knows how to score. Word from Purdue is he's ready to take on a prominent role with Purdue. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, Sean, freshman, you're watching out for this year.
Mine is a guy who I'm sure no one knows about. It's Trevor Anderson from Wisconsin Green Bay. He was a co-Mr. Basketball with Sam Hauser, another top 100 prospect in ESPN.com. And he went to Wisconsin Green Bay because he wanted to play right away, and he didn't want to wait for those Big Ten schools to offer him. But he has crazy handles, man. He's got a nice jumper, a great basketball IQ. He, in my opinion, he's the next player from the Horizon League that's going to come out of nowhere, like Alec Peters, Kiefer Sykes, and Norris Cole. I think he'll be great.
All right, I'm kind of going someone a little bit more on the map from Sean. I'm going Omar Yurtseven from NC State. Kid put up 91 points in a game in Europe earlier. I was so happy to see he was eligible. Of course, my pick here would have been Kostas from Dayton, but unfortunately he's not playing this year, as we talked about earlier. But Omar Yurtseven, player to watch. Gotta watch him NC State this year. Kid's going to be real good. Very skilled big man. Going to be an NBA draft pick right after this year if all things go well. Next is Ivan Rabb. We'll make it short and sweet. Ivan Rabb going to be a Pac-12 Player of the Year. He's got a lot of competition with Dylan Brooks and those guys in Arizona, UCLA. A lot of competition there. Is he a Pac-12 Player of the Year? We'll go with Sean first.
I haven't watched Ivan Rabb that much, but from what I've seen, they lost Jaylen Brown, of course, who was the top 3, got drafted to the Celtics, and they have Charlie Moore, freshman from Chicago, who I've seen play a couple times, very quick. I think he'll help Rabb. He'll be a focus on offense for opponents, and I think that'll open things up for Rabb. So I think he's developed well. He's got to kind of develop a jump shot a little bit, but I think he'll have a great year.
All right, Ryan, Ivan Rabb, is he Pac-12? Is he the Pac-12 Player of the Year?
Yes, he is. I've talked about him a little bit before. Like I said, very impressive numbers from his freshman year. I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to say he averages a double-double this year for Cal.
All right, I love it. Noah, is he the Pac-12 Player of the Year?
No, I think he's the second Pac Player of the Year. I think Dylan Brooks ends up taking it, but I think it's going to be neck and neck and voting.
I'm going to go on a limb. It's going to be not going to be Ivan Rabb. I think he's going to have a good year, but I think Alonzo Trier from Arizona is going to have a huge year, big enough to outlast Ivan Rabb. So it's going to be more of Trier's great play than Rabb's bad play, so that's what my thought is. All right, next. Bryce Drew may be gone, but Alec Peters is still Valparaiso. Do they make the NCAA tournament? / are they going to make a run? We'll start off with Sean again.
Well, I'm a big Valpo guy. I love Bryce Drew. Ever since I've seen that shot he put up against Ole Miss in the NCAA tournament. But it's gonna hurt that he's gone. But they have a new coach who was one of the assistants the past couple of years. Matt Loddick, I think his name is. But I think Alec Peters is going to have a breakout year. He doesn't have the people around him that he's had in the past. But I think 7'2" Derek Smits, son of former NBA player Rick Smits, will be a big addition to them. And also Micah Bradford, a freshman at point guard, and Lexus Williams. So I think they're going to win the Horizon League and definitely make it to the NCAA tournament. I'm not so sure about making a run because if Peters goes down or he's struggling. I don't see how Valpo can win.
All right, we'll go to Ryan next.
I think Alec Peters alone is going to be enough to win the Horizon League for Valparaiso, although Green Bay will be a major challenge for the Crusaders. I am also going to say that I'm not sure they will make a run, although it's really hard to predict at this point considering we don't really know matchups yet, which I think the NCAA tournament really is all about just getting a good matchup for your team. So I'm not going to put it past Valparaiso. I like what they do. I like their identity and defense. And Alec Peters is great. And like Sean mentioned, Rick Smith's son, Derek Smiths. I watched him play at Zionsville High School in Indiana. He's very talented. I think Valparaiso will win their Horizon League, and then I think it'll all be up to matchups from that point.
All right, Noah, what are your thoughts on Valparaiso and Alec Peters this year?
I love Alec Peters, and I think they are that team that every year the low to mid-major team that makes it to the tournament and actually surprises people in the first game or two. So I think that they could, the highest make it to the Sweet 16, but I think they'll at least win a game in the tournament.
All right, I don't watch enough Valparaiso to really make this call, but it's all about the tournament, especially when you play in a small conference. But if they're playing hot and going to the tournament, I wouldn't put it past them to win their tournament, get in, and then be a really trendy pick for many brackets to win the first two games. So those are my thoughts. Go a little bit more deeper on this one. How will teams adjust with the 30-second shot clock now that we've had a whole season with the 30-second shot clock and the new rules? Any thoughts you guys have about how our team's going to adapt going into this year now that they had kind of a year under their belt with the new rules? I don't care whoever wants to jump in on this.
Right. So.
Go ahead.
All right. I think it's gonna keep getting better too because it's what the players want to do. The players want to play faster. I even think most of the coaches want to play faster because that's how the game's changing. Everything is supposed to be faster and more fluid. So I think it's just going to keep looking better. I think the game's going to keep looking better, and it's going to be more fluid, and teams are going to adjust to where offenses just look very in sync.
Okay. Noah, you got something to say here?
All right, I think personally, I love the 30-second shot clock. I love the quicker up-tempo game. I think it affects how the strategy of each coach and recruiting too, because a lot of coaches are going to start recruiting quicker players, more offensive type players. So I think it's changing the game, and I think it's perfect for college basketball.
I love it. Tom Crean's an offensive mastermind, and 30-second shot clock means he has to defend for 5 seconds less, so he can deal with the 30 seconds left or the 5 seconds left on offense. But it plays into Tommy Crean's offense perfectly. I love it. The Hoosiers, baby, let's go. Let's get after it. All right, last one. Wrap it up. We're pushing over a little bit over an hour here in this first pod. Last note, Sean wanted to talk about Markel Fultz, big freshman out of Washington. They have had so many talented players. They've never played well or even made the tournament. So what's going on? Is Markel Fultz worth the hype? Is Washington worth the hype this year? So we'll go with Sean first.
Yeah, like you said, I have a man crush on Markel Fultz. He is a great player all around. He tears up. He played at Gonzaga, I believe, or DeMatha, one of those. And he played against national talent day in, day out, and just put up 20, 30 points every game. And I don't see why he can't do the same at Washington. I think he'll be the number 1 overall pick. But I don't know how he'll do it with Washington as a team. But if Markel Fultz is a stud this year, I'll be happy.
All right, Ryan, what are your thoughts on Markel Fultz? Are they going to even make the tournament? Is he worth the hype?
I think he's worth the hype. Then again, I haven't watched a whole lot of Markel Fultz, but I like these guys on the West Coast. I don't get to watch a lot of West Coast fall, but it was an interesting choice for Fultz to go to a place like Washington, where he will definitely be the guy. And I know on Washington's overseas trip, he really scored a lot of points for them. You know, he can shine in a place like Washington, and I think he'll probably carry Washington to an NCAA tournament berth, and from there, the NCAA tournament really is just about guards. Yeah, how good are your guards? And I think Fultz can really help them out and put Washington back on the map.
All right, Noah, thoughts on Washington?
I do think Washington makes a tournament, and it's finally time for one of their players to pan out. I love this kid's story from being on JV, and I think he was kicked off sophomore year. Then he came back, and he was like a top 5 player in the nation. I mean, that's an incredible story. So I hope that Washington's star player now finally turns out. It's their time for one player to finally pan out.
All right, I'm going to say you guys are a year early on Washington. Next year, they're going to have somebody that is worth the hype, and his name is Michael Porter Jr. And next year, he's going to be the #1 pick, and he's going to lead them to the tournament. So those are my thoughts. Hot take there at the end. Had to throw it in there, but Michael Porter Jr. is the best high school player right now. He's going to Washington, and he's going to lead them to victory. So you guys are a year early on Washington, and whoever's predicting them to go to the tournament. So we will go through one last time now and kind of do closing statements. If you guys have a rant you want to get off your chest, anything that's on your mind going into these last couple weeks of just practices and getting into scrimmages and games as we go on, and the recruiting trail is heating up too with a lot of fall decisions. So anything you guys want to go on, we will start with Sean and kind of go from there.
I've never been more excited for NCAA season as much as this one. I think the 2016 class is the top class in our lifetime, I think. And I'm excited to see Indiana put up banner number 6 this year. So that's all I got to say.
Let's do it. All right, Ryan, you're going to have to follow that one up all the way in West Lafayette. What are your thoughts?
I don't really have anything to say regarding that team in Wilmington, but I will just hit on a little bit of recruiting for Purdue. Purdue got their first 2017 first commit, Matt Harms out of Bel Air Academy in Kansas. He is 7'2" and looks to be a bit of a project for Coach Matt Painter. But I think if there's a coach that can make him reach his full potential, it's Matt Painter. We've seen Painter develop guys like Carl Landry, Juwan Johnson, AJ Hammonds, and then now guys like Isaac Haas and Caleb Swanigan. So first 2017 commit for Purdue. Purdue is still in on some guys like Nogel Eastern. Aaron Wheeler is another guy from the Midwest they're keeping in touch with, and so I'm sure Coach Matt Painter and his staff are relieved to have that first domino in place, and looking forward to see how they round out the class.
All right, Noah, we'll go to you for your closing statement.
I just want to hit on the Player of the Year candidates for me. I think Grayson Allen is going to win Player of the Year with Nigel Hayes, Dylan Brooks, and possibly Monte Morris right behind. I love all 4 of those players, and I'm really excited for Grayson Allen's season. I think it's going to be an incredible season for him.
All right, I'll finish it up. It's October 10th. I have been watching old basketball games, recruiting mixtapes. I've been on forums talking about everything. I am ready for the season to start. I have been thinking about basketball and talking about it forever now. I'm ready to start watching some games, start writing about the games, and I just am counting down the days. I cannot wait to see the Hoosiers take the floor in 2 weeks in the new Assembly Hall. So I had to throw that in there. It looks great. And if you're listening to the podcast and not watching the video, I've got my Bills jersey on. So go Bills! Big win today against the LA Rams. Had to throw that in there also. So that's my closing statement. And thanks for listening so much. We had a lot of fun here. It's happy to be back on the podcast. Thanks for joining me, guys, and have a good night.
Thank you.
See ya.